Lessons from failed startups, the Theranos story and beyond. What if I told you that some of the most valuable business lessons don't come from success stories, but from spectacular failures? What if the greatest teachers of entrepreneurship aren't the billionaires on magazine covers, but the founders who lost everything chasing impossible dreams? Today, we're diving deep into the dark side of Silicon Valley, the world of failed startups that promised to change the world but instead became cautionary tales of deception, delusion, and disaster. Before we begin this eye-opening journey, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of entrepreneurs and dreamers who learn from both triumphs and failures. Your subscription helps us bring you these crucial lessons every week. We'll explore the rise and catastrophic fall of Theranos, the blood testing company that fooled investors out of nearly $1 billion. We'll uncover the warning signs that everyone missed, the red flags that were ignored, and the psychological traps that led brilliant people to make devastating decisions. But this isn't just about pointing fingers or assigning blame. This is about extracting powerful lessons that could save your startup, protect your investments, and help you navigate the treacherous waters of entrepreneurship with wisdom gained from others' mistakes. And here's what I want from you. After watching this video, drop a comment below sharing the biggest lesson you learned from these failures. Also, if there's a particular success story you'd love to hear about next, drop that request in the comment section. Your engagement drives our content, and we want to tell the stories that matter most to you. Get ready for a masterclass in what not to do when building a startup. The rise of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. The golden child of Silicon Valley. In 2003, a 19-year-old Stanford University dropout named Elizabeth Holmes had what she claimed was a revolutionary idea. What if you could run hundreds of medical tests from just a single drop of blood? It was an ambitious vision that would make healthcare more accessible, affordable, and convenient for millions of people. Holmes wasn't just any college dropout. She was brilliant, charismatic, and came from a well-connected family. Her great-great-grandfather was the founder of Fleischmann's Yeast, and her father worked in government agencies. She had the pedigree that Silicon Valley investors loved. But more than her background, it was her presentation that captivated everyone. Holmes developed a distinctive deep voice, wore black turtlenecks in homage to Steve Jobs, and spoke with a kind of messianic fervor that made people believe she could change the world. The compelling vision. The healthcare problem Holmes identified was real and significant. Traditional blood testing required large volumes of blood, was expensive, time-consuming, and often inaccessible to many people. Her proposed solution, the Edison machines that could run comprehensive tests on tiny blood samples, would democratize healthcare. We've created a new model for healthcare that's based on prevention and early detection, Holmes would tell investors and media. We're going to make it possible for people to get comprehensive testing done at a fraction of the cost and with just a single drop of blood. The vision was so compelling that seasoned investors, renowned board members, and brilliant scientists suspended their usual skepticism. Here was a young woman promising to solve one of healthcare's biggest challenges. Early success and funding. By 2004, Holmes had raised $6.9 million in funding and founded Theranos, a combination of therapy and diagnosis. The company operated in stealth mode for years, claiming they were protecting their revolutionary technology from competitors. This secrecy should have been a red flag, but instead, it added to the mystique. In Silicon Valley's culture of fake it till you make it, secrecy was often seen as strategic rather than suspicious. Holmes assembled an impressive board of directors that read like a who's who of American politics and business. Former Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, former Defense Secretary James Mattis, former Treasury Secretary William Perry, and media mogul Rupert Murdoch. The media darling. By 2013 to 2014, Holmes had become Silicon Valley's darling. She graced the covers of Fortune, Forbes, and Inc. magazines. Fortune named her one of the world's most disappointing leaders. Forbes declared her the youngest self-made female billionaire with a net worth of $4.5 billion. The media coverage was overwhelmingly positive, focusing on her youth, her vision, and her potential to revolutionize healthcare. Very few journalists asked the hard questions about how the technology actually worked or demanded scientific proof of the claims. The partnership with Walgreens. In 2013, Theranos announced a partnership with Walgreens to offer blood testing in retail locations. This seemed to validate the company's technology and brought Holmes' vision closer to reality for millions of consumers. Walgreens was attracted to the possibility of offering convenient, affordable healthcare services in their stores. The partnership was worth millions and gave Theranos credibility in the healthcare industry. But behind the scenes, even this partnership was built on deception. Theranos was struggling to make their technology work reliably, yet they continued to promise capabilities they couldn't deliver. The $9 billion valuation. At its peak in 2014, Theranos was valued at $9 billion, making Holmes one of the richest people in America on paper. The company had raised nearly $1 billion from investors who believed they were funding the next Apple or Google of healthcare. Major investors included the Walton family, Walmart founders, Betsy DeVos, Carlos Slim, and venture capital firm Draper Fisher Jurvetson. These weren't naive amateur investors. They were sophisticated, experienced professionals who should have known better. The high valuation was based on the promise of revolutionary technology that could disrupt a multi-billion-dollar industry. But as we'll see, that technology existed only in Holmes' imagination and carefully orchestrated demonstrations. The house of cards begins to crumble. The whistleblower's courage. The first cracks in Theranos' facade appeared in 2014 when Tyler Schultz, the grandson of board member George Schultz, joined the company as an intern. Tyler was excited to work for what he believed was a revolutionary healthcare company. But Tyler quickly noticed problems. The lab results were inconsistent, the technology didn't work as advertised, and there was a culture of secrecy and fear within the company. When he raised concerns, he was told to keep quiet and threatened with lawsuits. Despite enormous pressure, including from his own grandfather who was financially invested in Theranos, Tyler chose to become a whistleblower. His courage would eventually help expose the fraud, but at tremendous personal cost. Another key whistleblower was Erica Chung, a lab technician who witnessed firsthand how Theranos was manipulating test results and using traditional machines from other companies instead of their proprietary Edison devices. The Wall Street Journal investigation. In October 2015, Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou published a bombshell investigation that began to unravel Theranos' carefully constructed narrative. Carreyrou had spent months investigating the company, interviewing former employees, and examining scientific evidence. His reporting revealed that Theranos' revolutionary technology was largely non-functional. The company was using traditional machines from other manufacturers to run most tests, diluting tiny blood samples to dangerous levels, and manipulating results to hide the technology's failures. The article also exposed the toxic culture within Theranos, where employees were intimidated, surveillance was common, and anyone who questioned the technology was fired or threatened with lawsuits. Holmes' response: attack and deny. Instead of addressing the serious allegations in Carreyrou's reporting, Holmes and Theranos chose to attack the messenger. They hired expensive lawyers and public relations firms to discredit the Wall Street Journal and its reporter. Holmes appeared on CNBC, Bloomberg, and other major media outlets denying the allegations and claiming that Theranos was the victim of sexism and jealousy from competitors who couldn't match their innovation. "This is what happens when you work to change things," Holmes said in one interview. "First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world." But the denials rang hollow as more evidence emerged and more whistleblowers came forward. The scientific community speaks out. As the Wall Street Journal's investigation continued, respected scientists and medical professionals began examining Theranos' claims more critically. What they found was deeply troubling. The company's published research was minimal and didn't support their extraordinary claims. The blood testing methods they described were scientifically questionable and potentially dangerous to patients who might receive inaccurate results. Dr. Phyllis Gardner, a professor at Stanford Medical School who had known Holmes as a student, publicly stated that she had warned Holmes years earlier that her blood testing concept was not scientifically sound. Regulatory investigation. The mounting evidence of problems attracted the attention of federal regulators. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, inspected Theranos lab facilities and found serious deficiencies that posed immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, also began investigating, finding that Theranos had been running tests without proper approval and had made claims about their technology that weren't supported by scientific evidence. These regulatory actions were devastating to Theranos' credibility and made it impossible to continue operating their lab services. The beginning of the end. By 2016, it was clear that Theranos' technology didn't work as advertised. The company began laying off employees, shutting down lab operations, and facing multiple lawsuits from investors, patients, and partners. Holmes' net worth, once estimated at $4.5 billion, dropped to zero as investors realized their stakes in the company were worthless. The woman once hailed as the next Steve Jobs was now seen as a fraud who had deceived everyone. But the legal consequences were just beginning. The legal reckoning and downfall. Criminal charges. In June 2018, Elizabeth Holmes and her former business partner and boyfriend Ramesh Sunny Balwani were indicted on federal charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The charges carried potential sentences of up to 20 years in prison. The indictment alleged that Holmes and Balwani had knowingly deceived investors, patients, and doctors about Theranos' capabilities. They were accused of using fake demonstrations, manipulated data, and outright lies to raise money and maintain their fraud. The criminal charges marked a rare instance of Silicon Valley executives being held personally accountable for their company's failures. Usually, failed startups result in financial losses but not criminal prosecution. The trial of the century. Holmes' trial began in September 2021 and became one of the most closely watched white-collar criminal trials in recent history. It offered a fascinating look into Silicon Valley's culture of hype, the psychology of fraud, and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. During the trial, prosecutors presented evidence of Holmes' deliberate deception. Fake demonstrations using machines that didn't work. Manipulated lab results to hide poor performance. False claims about partnerships and endorsements. Fabricated financial projections to attract investors. Holmes' defense team argued that she was a true believer who genuinely thought her technology would work, and that she was manipulated and abused by Balwani. They portrayed her as a victim rather than a villain. The verdict and sentencing. In January 2022, Holmes was convicted on 4 counts of fraud related to deceiving investors. She was acquitted on charges related to defrauding patients, though the jury couldn't reach a verdict on several other counts. In November 2022, Holmes was sentenced to more than 11 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $452 million in restitution to investors. The sentence was one of the longest ever given to a Silicon Valley executive for corporate fraud. Balwani was separately tried and convicted, receiving a sentence of nearly 13 years in prison. The human cost. Beyond the financial losses and legal consequences, the Theranos scandal had a profound human cost. Patients received inaccurate blood test results that could have led to wrong medical decisions and treatments. Employees who tried to do the right thing faced harassment, legal threats, and career damage. Investors lost nearly $1 billion, including pension funds and individuals who trusted Holmes' vision. The broader startup ecosystem suffered reputational damage as the scandal highlighted the dangers of Silicon Valley's fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. Lessons from the courtroom. The trial revealed crucial lessons about startup fraud and corporate responsibility. 1. Charisma without substance is dangerous. Holmes' ability to inspire belief couldn't overcome the fundamental flaws in her technology. 2. Board oversight failed catastrophically. Despite prestigious board members, no one effectively challenged Holmes or demanded proof of her claims. 3. Media coverage was inadequate. Most journalists accepted Holmes' claims without demanding scientific evidence or independent verification. 4. Investor due diligence was insufficient. Even sophisticated investors failed to properly investigate the technology they were funding. 5. Regulatory oversight was too slow. It took years for regulators to effectively investigate and shut down Theranos' dangerous operations. Other notable startup failures and their lessons. WeWork, the unicorn that wasn't. WeWork, the office-sharing startup once valued at $47 billion, provides another cautionary tale about hype over substance. Founder Adam Neumann convinced investors that WeWork wasn't just a real estate company but a technology company that was elevating the world's consciousness. Key lessons from WeWork's failure. Governance matters. Neumann had too much control with insufficient oversight. Unit economics must work. WeWork was losing money on every lease despite massive revenue. Culture can become toxic. The company's party culture masked serious operational problems. Vision without viable business model is worthless. Grandiose missions don't justify unsustainable economics. Quibi, the $1.75 billion mistake. Quibi, the short-form mobile video platform, raised $1.75 billion and shut down after just 6 months. Despite having Hollywood veterans Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman at the helm, the company completely misread the market. Lessons from Quibi. Market research is crucial. They built a product nobody wanted. Timing matters. Launching during COVID-19 when people were home, not mobile, was disastrous. Past success doesn't guarantee future success. Hollywood expertise didn't translate to tech. Consumer behavior is hard to change. People weren't willing to pay for short-form content. Jawbone, hardware startup struggles. Jawbone, once valued at $3.2 billion, was a pioneer in wearable fitness technology. Despite early success and significant funding, the company failed due to manufacturing problems, intense competition, and strategic missteps. Hardware startup lessons. Manufacturing is hard. Physical products have different challenges than software. Quality control is crucial. Defective products destroy brand reputation. Competition can emerge quickly. Apple Watch and Fitbit overtook Jawbone's early lead. Cash flow management is critical. Hardware companies need more capital to survive. Color Labs. The $41 million failure. Color Labs raised $41 million before even launching their product, a photo-sharing app. The company shut down after just 2 years, having burned through almost all their funding with little to show for it. Lessons about overfunding. Too much money too early can be harmful. Massive funding can lead to reckless spending. Product-market fit comes first. No amount of money can fix a product nobody wants. Team scaling requires discipline. Hiring too fast can destroy company culture. Investor expectations become unrealistic. Large funding rounds create pressure for massive returns. The common patterns of failure. Analyzing these and other startup failures reveals common patterns. 1. Founder hubris. Successful founders often become overconfident and stop listening to feedback. 2. Insufficient market validation. Companies build products without confirming market demand. 3. Poor unit economics. Revenue growth without sustainable profitability leads to collapse. 4. Governance failures. Boards that don't provide adequate oversight enable bad decisions. 5. Cultural toxicity. Unhealthy company cultures eventually destroy performance. 6. Technology limitation. Promising technology that doesn't work as advertised. 7. Competitive underestimation. Failing to anticipate or respond to competitive threats. Critical lessons for entrepreneurs. Integrity is non-negotiable. The most fundamental lesson from Theranos and other failures is that integrity cannot be compromised. Holmes' willingness to lie to investors, patients, and employees wasn't just morally wrong, it was strategically disastrous. Key takeaways. Be honest about your product's limitations and timeline. Don't make promises you can't keep. Admit mistakes quickly and openly. Build a culture where truth-telling is rewarded, not punished. Lesson 2. Technology must actually work. Silicon Valley's fake it till you make it culture can be dangerous when applied to technology that affects people's health, safety, or financial well-being. There's a difference between having a minimum viable product and having a fundamentally broken product. Essential practices. Validate your technology with independent testing. Be realistic about technical challenges and timelines. Don't launch products that could harm users. Invest in proper research and development before making grand claims. Lesson 3. Build proper governance. Many startup failures stem from inadequate governance and oversight. Founders who accumulate too much power without checks and balances often make catastrophic decisions. Governance best practices. Create boards with relevant expertise and independence. Establish clear accountability mechanisms. Regularly review and challenge strategic decisions. Ensure transparent communication with investors and stakeholders. Lesson 4. Focus on unit economics. Sustainable businesses must eventually make money on each customer or transaction. Growth without profitability is not a viable long-term strategy, despite what Silicon Valley culture might suggest. Financial discipline. Understand your unit economics from day one. Plan a realistic path to profitability. Don't rely on "we'll figure it out later" strategies. Monitor cash flow carefully and plan for various scenarios. Lesson 5. Listen to dissenting voices. Theranos' toxic culture silenced employees who tried to raise concerns. Healthy organizations encourage and reward people who identify problems early. Creating a culture of truth. Reward employees who raise legitimate concerns. Create anonymous channels for reporting problems. Don't shoot the messenger when receiving bad news. Regularly seek feedback from customers, employees, and partners. Lesson 6. Due diligence applies to everyone. Investors, board members, partners, and journalists all failed to properly investigate Theranos. Everyone has a responsibility to ask hard questions and demand evidence. Better due diligence. Verify claims independently. Ask for references from customers and employees. Review financial statements carefully. Don't be swayed by charisma or prestigious associations. Lesson 7. Understand the difference between vision and delusion. Having a big vision is important for startups, but that vision must be grounded in reality. There's a fine line between ambitious thinking and dangerous delusion. Staying grounded. Test your assumptions with real customers. Seek feedback from industry experts. Be willing to pivot when evidence contradicts your vision. Balance optimism with realistic assessment of challenges. Your action plan. As you build your own startup or make investment decisions, apply these lessons. 1. Establish clear ethical guidelines and stick to them regardless of pressure. 2. Build products that actually solve real problems for real customers. 3. Create governance structures that provide accountability and oversight. 4. Focus on sustainable business models rather than just growth metrics. 5. Encourage honest feedback and create safe spaces for dissenting opinions. 6. Conduct thorough due diligence on partnerships, investments, and opportunities. 7. Stay connected to reality through customer feedback and market data. Final thoughts. Learning from failure. The entrepreneurs behind these failed startups weren't necessarily bad people. Many had genuine intentions to create positive change. But good intentions aren't enough. Success requires integrity, competence, and the wisdom to learn from others' mistakes. Remember that failure can be a powerful teacher, but only if we're willing to learn. The entrepreneurs who studied these failures and applied their lessons are building stronger, more sustainable companies. Now it's your turn to share what you've learned. Drop a comment below telling us the biggest lesson you took from these startup failures. And if there's a particular success story you'd love to hear about next, whether it's a comeback story, a bootstrapped success, or an innovative disruption, drop that request in the comments section. Your engagement helps us create the content that serves you best. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss these crucial lessons that could save your startup and accelerate your success. Because in the world of entrepreneurship, the lessons you learn from others' failures might be the most valuable education you ever receive. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges in your entrepreneurial journey. You will. The question is whether you'll have the wisdom to recognize the warning signs and the courage to make the right decisions when it matters most. Learn from these failures, apply these lessons, and build something better. Comment below with the biggest lesson you learned from these startup failures. Drop your success story requests in the comments. We want to tell the stories that inspire you most. Subscribe and turn on notifications for weekly lessons that will accelerate your entrepreneurial journey.